Hey everyone, welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're embarking on really a fascinating exploration, an introduction to Judaism. It's a profound, ancient, and, well, truly multifaceted tradition, and we're drawing our insights today from excerpts from an introduction to Judaism, beliefs, practices, and heritage. Our mission, our goal with this deep dive is to really dig into this source, pull out the most vital takeaways, and give you a clear, engaging picture of what Judaism is all about. Its foundational beliefs, its rich history, daily practices, community structure, all without overwhelming you, hopefully. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start right at the core. When we talk about Judaism, the concept of GD is absolutely central. But the Jewish understanding of GD seems, well, it seems to transcend typical monotheistic images in some really unique ways. Can you help us unpack what truly sets it apart?
Yeah, absolutely. What's incredibly profound here is this unique monotheistic concept. In Jewish belief, GD is the single creator and animator of the entire world, period. There are no helpers, no children, no rivals. GD is absolutely one. And the source really emphasizes Gene has no properties. Gene isn't even really a he.
Right, it's beyond gender.
Exactly. It's not just about avoiding gender. It's about understanding GD as truly transcendent, beyond any human limitations or categories. It's an infinite, unknowable essence, the invisible force behind everything, knowing all that has been, is, and will be.
Wow. That's a concept that really makes you stop and think, an infinite essence beyond human form. And here's where it gets really interesting, the idea of free choice. If GD knows everything, how does human agency, like our ability to choose, fit into that all-encompassing knowledge?
Yeah.
It feels like a beautiful paradox.
It truly is. Despite GD omniscience, humanity was granted this immense gift of free choice. The belief isn't that our path is predetermined exactly, but that GD presents us with options. And when we choose to follow GD's ways, as outlined in the Torah, well, GD rewards those choices.
Rewards. How so?
Well, these aren't just abstract, distant rewards. They can manifest in this world, in our experiences, as well as in the world to come after death. It really emphasizes the profound responsibility and, well, the power of our individual actions.
So it's not just about what you believe, but very much about what you do. And that brings us straight into the epic historical narrative of the Jewish people, which is just so foundational to understanding Judaism. Can you walk us through that journey?
Certainly. The story begins, as the source lays it out, with GD creating the world in 6 days and resting on the 7th. That pattern is key. Then GD chose Abraham and his descendants to become his special nation, destined to dwell in a special homeland, Israel. This covenant, this agreement, really set the stage. Fast forward, and we see a challenging 210-year period of slavery in Egypt, a really formative, difficult time. Kfir then dramatically led his people out in the Exodus, taking them to Mount Sinai.
Right, the Ten Commandments.
And much more. They received a profound covenant and instructions for life, sort of the blueprint for their nationhood, you could say. Then, after 40 years of wandering in the desert,
40 years.
Yes, 40 years. They finally entered the Promised Land, and in time they built the Holy Temple, the Beit HaMikdash, literally, the House of Holiness in Jerusalem. This was the spiritual epicenter, a place for sacrifices, for direct connection to Egypt.
So that didn't last forever?
Sadly, no. Both temples were eventually destroyed by foreign invaders, the Romans being the final ones for the Second Temple. And this led to the scattering of the Jewish people into exile, known as Galut, across the globe. A profound trauma.
It's a story of creation, covenant, immense struggle, but also, as you said, enduring hope, because, as the source explains, this story isn't actually over.
Exactly. That's crucial. The narrative isn't closed. There's a future vision, a deeply held belief. A time will come when the Jewish people will once again be gathered in their homeland with a rebuilt temple, and the world itself will become peaceful, jidely, and, well, perfect. It's this powerful and constant thread of messianic hope woven through Jewish life.
That rich history, it must naturally shape identity. And it's fascinating how the names we use for the Jewish people today themselves seem to tell a story of evolving identity and purpose. How did that come about?
Yeah, it's a great insight, actually. The source outlines 3 key names for the descendants of Abraham, each with its own significance. Abraham himself is referred to as a Hebrew. It's a name often associated with the language, maybe his journey across lands, the word ever, meaning side or across.
Okay, Hebrew first.
Then his grandson, Jacob, wrestled with an angel, the story goes, and was given a second name, Israel. This name became deeply associated with the Israelite nation and, of course, its homeland.
Right, the land of Israel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And finally, of Jacob's 12 sons, Judah held a position of leadership. His tribe became dominant, especially after the northern kingdom was lost. And eventually, the entire nation became known as Jews, and their creed, their way of life, Judaism.
Ah,
So you see this kind of progression from an individual, Abraham the Hebrew, to a nation, Israel, to a defined religious identity, the Jews, and Judaism.
that makes perfect sense. It maps onto the history.
Yeah.
Now let's shift focus a bit to the foundational texts that guide Jewish life and understanding. What are these core texts and, how do they function?
Well, the primary text, the absolute foundation, is the Torah. It's also known as the 5 books of Moses. Moses, according to tradition, recorded the story of creation, Abraham's family history, and crucially, Judaism's instructions for both personal and communal life in this foundational text.
The blueprint, as you called it.
Yes, exactly. Think of it as the ultimate blueprint. But there's more. In addition to the Torah, there are 19 other sacred books. These are generally grouped into Nevi'im, which means prophets, and Ketuvim, writings. They contain the history of the Jewish people for several hundred years after Moses' death, along with prophetic communications, wisdom literature, poetry, a whole range of sacred writings.
So the written Torah, prophets, writings. Got it.
But then there's the oral Torah. And this is, well, what's fascinating here is how these traditions were passed down and then eventually codified.
Oral Torah, so not written down initially.
Exactly. Alongside the divine traditions recorded by Moses in the written Torah, many details and commandments were communicated and preserved orally. Think of the written Torah as maybe the concise blueprint, right? And the oral Torah as the incredibly detailed instruction manual, the interpretations, the applications that bring it to life.
Okay, I see.
This rich tradition, passed down and elaborated on by sages over generations, was eventually codified, written down, because of the fear it might be lost during exile and persecution. This led to texts like the Mishnah, which is kind of the foundational code of Jewish law, compiled around 200 CE. Then you have the Talmud, which is this vast, multi-generational commentary on the Mishnah. It's full of discussions, legal debates, ethical arguments, stories. It's immense.
Wow.
And Midrash often refers to more narrative or homiletic interpretations that delve into the deeper meaning of the biblical text, finding lessons and insights.
That's incredible. This isn't just about static text sitting on a shelf. It's a dynamic, ongoing process of interpretation and learning. It really highlights how central study must be.
Absolutely. It's fundamental. These texts are still being studied, explored, debated, and expanded upon as we speak. This happens through individual scholars, sure, but also in community study groups and specialized academies called yeshivas. And it's taught to Jewish children in private schools or supplementary Hebrew schools.
And now online, too, you mentioned.
Right. And for modern accessibility, Torah study has been available online since, believe it or not, 1994, through sites like Shabbat.org and many others now. This isn't just reading, it's a living engagement with millennia of wisdom. It's a conversation across time.
That really underscores the living nature of these traditions. So how do these profound beliefs and these extensive texts, how do they manifest in daily Jewish life? What are some of the key practices, or mitzvahs, as the source calls the 613 instructions, that shape the everyday?
Right, the mitzvahs. Well, while some of the 613 mitzvahs relate specifically to the Holy Temple and aren't currently applicable day to day.
Because there's no temple standing.
Exactly. But many, many are very much part of day-to-day Jewish life. They're about bringing holiness into the everyday. For instance, think about the idea of creating a sanctuary in time. Shabbat, the Sabbath, is the weekly day of rest, running from Friday night to Saturday night. It commemorates Shabbat, creating the world in 6 days and resting on the 7th. Jewish people are commanded to do the same.
So it's more than just not working.
Oh, much more. It's not just about not working. It's about actively disconnecting from the mundane, the weekday hustle. It's meant to be a time for feasting, prayer, study, family relaxation, creating a spiritual space. It's ushered in with candlelighting late on Friday afternoon.
Okay, Shabbat. What else?
Then there's Kosher, which refers to Judaism's special dietary laws. This isn't primarily about health, though some connections might be made. It's really about elevating the very act of eating into a spiritual discipline, a way of connecting with Judaism, even through physical needs.
How does that work in practice?
Well, only certain animal species can be eaten generally. Land animals that chew their cud and have split hooves, so no pork, for example.
Yeah.
And sea creatures need fins and scales, so no shellfish. Meat must also be slaughtered in a specific humane way, and certain parts aren't eaten. And a major rule is the complete separation of meat and dairy products. They aren't cooked or eaten together, symbolizing perhaps a certain distinction and holiness even in our consumption.
Interesting. Very detailed.
Yes. And prayer is also central. Jews pray regularly to GU, often communally in a synagogue, but private prayer is also vital. The backbone of the prayer service is a passage from the Torah called the Shema. It starts, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one." It's a declaration of Jid's unity.
The Shema.
Yes. It's traditionally said every morning and night, and also profoundly as a Jew prepares to pass on as a final declaration of faith. And related to prayer, many Jewish males wear certain adornments, as the source calls them, during morning prayers.
Right, I've seen pictures.
Tefillin. Exactly. Tefillin are small leather boxes strapped to the head and arm. They contain tiny handwritten scrolls with snippets of the Torah, including the Shema. They're seen as a physical reminder to dedicate one's mind, the head tefillin, and actions, the arm tefillin, opposite the heart to GA. And the talit is a four-cornered prayer shawl worn during prayer. It has fringes, called tzitzit, on each corner.
What's the significance of the fringes?
The Torah commands wanting them, saying that seeing the tzitzit serves as a visual reminder of GD and all his commandments, helping one to remember and fulfill them. And one more common one, the mezuzah. This is a small case placed on the upper right-hand side of doorways in Jewish homes and often workplaces. Inside is a scroll with the Shema written on it. It's like a constant reminder every time you enter or leave a room of GD's presence and commandments within your living space.
These practices really do seem to weave spirituality into the very fabric of everyday life, making it a continuous act of devotion, or at least awareness. Beyond the daily rhythm, how are Jewish holidays celebrated throughout the year? What's the distinct flavor of each?
Right. The holidays punctuate the year, each with its own special customs, foods, prayers, and a unique story or theme it commemorates. They follow a lunar calendar mostly. In the fall, you have Baha'i holidays. Rosh Hashanah is the Jewish New Year. It's a time of judgment and reflection, celebrated with special prayers, hearing the shofar blasts, the sound of the ram's horn, which is like a spiritual wake-up call.
And apples and honey.
And apples dipped in honey, yes, symbolizing the hope for a sweet new year. 10 days later comes Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. This is considered the holiest day of the year. It's marked by a profound 25-hour fast, no food or drink, and intensive prayer focused on repentance, forgiveness, and spiritual cleansing. Soon after that is Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles. For 7 days, people eat meals and sometimes even sleep in temporary huts called sukkahs, which are built outdoors.
Why the huts?
They recall the temporary dwellings the Israelites lived in during their 40 years wandering in the desert after leaving Egypt. It emphasizes reliance on G and the fragility of material possessions.
Okay, that's the fall. What about winter?
In the winter, there's Chanukah, the Festival of Lights. It commemorates the rededication of the temple in Jerusalem after a revolt against oppressors. It's marked by lighting a special candelabrum called a menorah for 8 consecutive nights, symbolizing a miracle where one day's supply of oil supposedly lasted for 8 days. It's a celebration of resilience and religious freedom, and then later in winter or early spring is Purim. This is a really joyful holiday, almost carnival-like. People dress up in costumes, read the story of Esther, the Megillah, exchange gifts of food, give charity, and celebrate the salvation of the Jewish people from a decree of destruction in ancient Persia. Lots of fun.
Sounds like it. And spring.
Spring brings Pesach, or Passover. This is a major festival lasting 8 days typically. It commemorates the exodus from Egyptian slavery. The key observance is avoiding all chametz, leavened bread, or foods containing leavening agents. Instead, matzah, a flat, unleavened cracker, is eaten.
The bread of affliction, right?
Exactly, representing the haste with which the Israelites left Egypt without time for their bread to rise. There's also a special ceremonial meal called the Seder, and later in the spring is Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks. This marks the anniversary of the divine revelation at Mount Sinai, when the Torah was given to the Jewish people. It celebrates the receiving of the Torah and is often marked by all-night study sessions and eating dairy foods. It's like the spiritual birthday of the Jewish people.
That's a really rich calendar, each holiday reinforcing a core principle or a key historical event. It connects people back through time. Shifting gears a bit, let's talk about the importance of language and also sacred spaces within Judaism.
Sure, language is incredibly important. Hebrew is the primary sacred language. It's the original language of the Torah, the prophets, and the writings. It's deeply revered. There's even a mystical tradition described in the source that says it's the language GU used to create the world, imbuing it with creative power and deep significance. Most prayers are in Hebrew.
But Jews speak other languages too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Over time, as Jews lived in different parts of the world, Aramaic became the common language in ancient Israel and Babylon, and it's the main language of the Talmud. And as Jews migrated, special Jewish dialects emerged, blending Hebrew and Aramaic elements with local languages, like Ladino, based on Spanish, spoken by Sephardic Jews, or Yiddish, based on German, spoken by Ashkenazi Jews, and various Jewish Arabic dialects, too. These languages carry rich cultural histories.
Fascinating linguistic diversity. And what about sacred places?
Well, the land of Israel itself is considered the sacred birthright of the Jewish people, promised in the covenant with Abraham. Within Israel, Jerusalem is the holiest city, and the Temple Mount in Jerusalem is the holiest place within the city, because that's where the two holy temples stood. The divine presence was said to dwell there in a unique way.
But access is restricted now.
Right. Since Jews can no longer access the Temple Mount itself for prayer in the same way, the Western Wall, or the Kotel, a remnant of the retaining wall of the Temple Mount complex, has become the central place for Jewish prayer today. It's a very powerful site for Jews worldwide.
And beyond Israel, synagogues.
Yes. All over the world, wherever Jews live, they gather regularly to pray in synagogues, also often called shuls in Yiddish. But these aren't just places of prayer. They often function as community hubs, centers for study, social gatherings, life cycle events. A key feature inside is the Holy Ark, or Aron Kodesh, which houses the handwritten Torah scrolls. It faces towards Jerusalem, symbolizing the spiritual heart of the community and its connection to the ancient temple.
It's beautiful how the physical and the spiritual are interwoven. The land, the city, the wall, the synagogue, the scrolls. And here's where it gets really interesting, something you touched on earlier. The idea that holiness isn't confined only to these specific sites or structures. The source suggests any place can become sacred. How does that work?
Yeah, that's a truly empowering concept, I think. While the temple and the land of Israel hold a unique inherent holiness, Jewish thought also teaches that worship can happen anywhere. You don't need a synagogue to pray. And the belief goes further. If you do something good, something positive, something that makes JD proud, so to speak, in a particular spot, maybe it's an act of kindness, a moment of deep study, a heartfelt prayer helping someone, you've essentially made that place, that ordinary spot, into a sacred spot at that moment.
Wow.
It means holiness isn't just somewhere you go to find it, but something you can actually create through your actions, infusing the mundane world with meaning and sanctity.
So it's about the intent and the action making the space holy.
Yeah.
It's powerful. Moving beyond physical spaces, let's talk about the broader Jewish community itself. How is a Jew defined, according to the tradition described here, and what are some of the traditional roles within the community?
Okay. According to traditional Jewish law, as outlined in the source, a Jew is defined as someone who was born to a Jewish mother.
So it's matrilineal descent.
Yes, traditionally. Or someone who has formally converted to Judaism through a process supervised by a bona fide rabbinical court, which involves commitment to the mitzvahs and immersion in a ritual bath, among other things. And what's really crucial to understand, as the source emphasizes, is that this identity is considered an eternal birthright. A person remains Jewish in essence, even if they lapse in their practice, even if they unfortunately profess other religions, or even if they claim to have no beliefs at all.
Really? Even then?
Yes. The idea is that the Torah, the covenant, remains their eternal birthright. It's a deep, inherent connection, a belonging to the people and its destiny that isn't nullified by individual choices in observance or belief later in life. There's also a strong emphasis on family. Respect for parents and grandparents is deeply stressed, and the family unit is seen as vital, with many rituals reinforcing this connection. Jewish marriage also has its own distinct processes and traditions.
Okay. What about non-Jews in this framework?
Right.
It's also important to note that non-Jews are not expected or required to follow most of the Torah's 613 commandments, which are seen as specific to the Jewish covenant. Instead, Jewish tradition teaches that all of humanity is enjoined to live by what are called the 7 Noahide laws.
Noahide laws. From Noah.
Yes, believed to have been given to Noah after the flood for all his descendants, meaning all humanity. These are fundamental universal ethical principles, things like establishing courts of justice, prohibitions against idolatry, blasphemy, murder, theft, sexual immorality, and eating a limb from a living animal. They provide a basic groundwork for a moral and just society for everyone. It highlights a universalistic dimension within Judaism's worldview. And crucially, the source points out that individuals draw closer to G through mitzvahs, Torah study, and refining their character. There are no individuals or organizations holding the keys to heaven. Access is direct.
That emphasizes a direct, unmediated connection. Very interesting. So what about traditional roles within the community, like Levites or rabbis? Okay, so in ancient times, Jewish society was structured around 12 tribes descended from Jacob's sons. One tribe, the tribe of Levi, was selected by Jah to be his special servants. Their role was primarily spiritual, teaching the Torah and caring for the Holy Temple. They didn't receive a territorial land inheritance like the other tribes. Within the tribe of Levi, one family, descended from Aaron, Moses' brother, were designated as the Kohanim, the priests. Their specific role is to perform the sacrificial services and other rituals in the temple.
Do those distinctions still exist today?
Well, today most Jews actually don't know for sure which tribe they descend from. However, many families have preserved traditions identifying them as Levites, Levium, or Kohanim. You might see them having specific honors or roles in synagogue services, for instance. It's mainly about preserving that historical identity.
And rabbis, are they like priests?
No, that's a common misconception. Rabbis are not priests or intermediaries between people and GD. A rabbi is essentially a learned Jew, someone who is proficient in key areas of the Torah, the Talmud, Jewish law, and tradition. The title rabbi means teacher or master. They function as spiritual leaders, educators, counselors, and interpreters of Jewish law. They need to be seen as trustworthy and accurate conduits of Jewish tradition, belief, and practice.
So their authority comes from their learning and community recognition.
Exactly. It's based on their scholarship and their ability to guide the community according to Jewish teachings. This raises an important question. How does a community ensure the continuity and accuracy of its traditions? Rabbis play a key role in that.
They really are the living bridge in many ways, connecting the present community to thousands of years of tradition and text.
Wow. Okay, we've journeyed through quite a lot here, from the core beliefs about GD and free choice, through the epic historical narrative, the evolution of identity and names, the sacred texts, both written and oral, the daily practices or mitzvahs, the cycle of holidays, the significance of language and sacred spaces, and finally, the definition of who is a Jew and the roles within the community. It's incredibly rich.
It truly is. And it really shows Judaism not as a static relic, but as a living, breathing tradition, one that is constantly engaged with, studied, debated, and explored by its adherents. It's always evolving while remaining deeply rooted. Indeed, that's a great way to put it. So as you, our listener, reflect on all of this that we've unpacked today, maybe consider this final thought. Given that profound historical connection to land, that deep emphasis on continuous learning and living engagement with texts, and that really transformative notion that any place can be made sacred through our actions, what does it truly mean for a belief system to be both so profoundly rooted in ancient tradition and yet somehow so incredibly adaptable and resilient across millennia and across global dispersion? Something to think about. We really encourage you to explore further based on your newfound understanding or maybe any aha moments you had during this deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us today.